Elliot and Carla Warren's love story was the kind people believed in. He was the humble tech millionaire who never forgot where he came from. She was the charming event planner who seemed to fit perfectly into his world. But behind that picture-perfect story was a truth so dark, it nearly cost him his life. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you couldn't even imagine they might be capable of hurting you? That was Elliot Warren. To his friends, he was the good guy who made it big and stayed kind. To his parents, he was the son who still called every morning and never missed Sunday dinner. To his twin daughters, Emma and Lily, he was just daddy, the man who built tree houses, read bedtime stories, and showed up to every soccer practice. And to his wife, Carla, he was a target. Today, we're diving into the shocking story of how a loving husband became a prisoner in his own home, and how the woman everyone thought was a devoted wife secretly planned to kill him twice. Stay with me until the end, because the way this story flips in the final act is something you will not forget. Before everything went wrong, 40-year-old Elliot Warren was living the kind of life most people only dream about. He built a tech startup from his garage with 2 college friends, turned it into a company worth $500 million, and still drove a simple car and wore jeans to work. He bought his parents a modest dream home in Florida, nothing flashy, just a quiet place with a porch where his mom could drink her coffee and watch the sunrise. He set up scholarships for underprivileged students. He paid for employees' medical bills. He helped people whose houses burned down, whose kids were sick, whose lives had fallen apart. Success to Elliot wasn't about flexing. It was about lifting other people up. And then there was Carla. She came from a middle-class background and spent her whole life looking at wealth from the outside. She knew how it felt to see other people take everything for granted while she scraped by. Over time, that jealousy hardened. She studied rich people, their habits, their weaknesses, the doors that opened for them and slammed in her face. By the time she met Elliot at a charity event, she knew exactly how to blend into his world. She was warm, attentive, funny, interested in his work, passionate about his causes. Within months, Elliot was in love. His parents adored her. His friends approved. He married her without a prenuptial agreement because, in his words, when you marry someone, you trust them completely. That trust would almost kill him. They had twin girls, Emma and Lily, and from the outside the Warrens were the perfect family. Beautiful wife. Successful husband. 2 healthy daughters. The American dream wrapped in a bow. But inside Carla, something very different was growing. Resentment. Not because Elliot hurt her. Not because he betrayed her. But because he represented every rich person who had ever made her feel less than. And this time, she wasn't going to be the one discarded. March 15th, 2019 started like any other day for Elliot. He went to the gym, then to the office. What he didn't know was that earlier that morning, his wife had driven to his office parking garage with a bag of tools and a plan. Security cameras later showed her car pulling in at 6:47 a.m. She parked near his vehicle, took out a large bag, and spent 11 full minutes under his car. When investigators later examined the wreckage, they found his brake line wasn't worn down. It wasn't old. It wasn't rusty. It had been cut. That evening, Elliot finished a late meeting, texted Carla, heading home. Big news, love you. She never replied. She was at a hotel with her lover. On the highway home, his brakes slowly failed. First, a soft pedal, then nothing. At nearly 70 miles per hour, he hit a curve, went through a guardrail, and rolled down an embankment. No witnesses, no help, no chance to call anyone. Hours later, a truck driver spotted the wreck and called 911. Elliot survived, barely. With severe spinal injuries, a traumatic brain injury, internal bleeding, and massive trauma, doctors gave him a 20% chance to live. They were clear. If he did survive, his life would never be the same. Carla arrived at the hospital late, with perfect makeup, and instantly stepped into her new role. The devoted wife fighting to hold everything together. Online, she posted photos. Standing by my warrior husband. Pray for Elliot. True love never leaves. People flooded her with sympathy. They called her an angel. Behind the scenes, she asked the neurologist a question that chilled him. If he stays like this, what happens to his assets? While Elliot lay in a coma, his wife wasn't planning how to help him recover. She was calculating what she could gain if he didn't. Elliot woke up 3 weeks later. Physically, he was broken. Mentally, he was fully aware. He couldn't walk. He could barely move his arms. His speech was severely damaged. He depended on others for everything: eating, bathing, moving, even using the bathroom. He could hear. He could think. He understood every word spoken around him. And that's what made it torture. Doctors explained he'd likely use a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Speech would be extremely limited. He'd need full-time care. Carla stepped in immediately. He needs to be in his own home. I'll take care of him. I'm his wife, for better or worse. Elliot's parents offered to bring him to their home in Florida and handle his care. Carla refused. She wanted him under her roof. But she didn't want their daughters there. She convinced Elliot's parents that seeing their dad in that condition would traumatize the girls and suggested they live with their grandparents until he recovered more. In reality, getting the children out of the house gave her freedom. Freedom to bring lovers over. Freedom to neglect her husband without witnesses. Freedom to abuse him without anyone noticing. To the outside world, she was a saint. Inside the home, she was something else entirely. She mocked his condition. She withheld food as punishment. She brought men into their bedroom while he was nearby and acted like he was furniture. Elliot couldn't move. He couldn't shout. He could only cry quietly and hope someone would see what was happening. Eventually someone did. Months into this nightmare, Carla hired a live-in caregiver named Elena. She was an immigrant, experienced, kind, and completely dependent on her job to keep her visa. That made her easy to threaten, and Carla knew it. From day one, Elena noticed something was off. Carla would tell her things like, "Don't feed him if I say wait, I control his schedule." She snapped when Elena questioned medical needs, reminded her she could call immigration, and made it clear who held the power. Elena started keeping a private journal, dates, times, exact words, everything she saw. She watched Carla bring in a stream of lovers. She watched them laugh at Elliot's condition. She watched them talk about him like he wasn't there. The worst part wasn't just the cheating. It was the open cruelty, jokes about him being useless. Comments like, "He should have died in that accident." Elliot couldn't answer. But his eyes said everything. Elena began quietly helping him, sneaking him food when Carla tried to starve him, giving him blankets, talking to him like a human being, not an object. One night she found him on the floor, his wheelchair tipped over, a cut on his head. He had been shoved and left there. She couldn't prove it, but she knew. She lifted his head gently, cleaned the wound, and whispered, "You're not alone, sir. I promise." That moment changed everything. Because what looked like a breakdown from the outside was actually the beginning of Elliot's fight back. Sometimes the human brain does something incredible under extreme stress. Elliot had been stuck in a body that wouldn't respond for months. But that day on the floor, after the shove, after hearing his wife and her lover talk about his death like it was already scheduled, something snapped inside his nervous system. A massive surge of adrenaline hit. His body convulsed. His brain, damaged but not destroyed, started rewiring itself. Over the next weeks, Elena noticed changes. A deliberate blink, a tiny nod, fingers beginning to move. Then, slowly more. He could grip. He could feed himself soft foods. He could form simple words. The first clear word he said to Elena was her name. By the end of several weeks, with Elena's secret help, he wasn't just improving. He was walking short distances with support. His speech was rough but understandable. Carla had no idea. Whenever she was home, Elliot went back into helpless mode. Vacant eyes, slumped posture, garbled sounds. She saw what she wanted to see, a man still trapped. But he had already escaped in his mind, and now he was planning something of his own. Elliot knew that if he confronted Carla with only his word, she'd deny everything and twist the story. He needed proof. Not just stories, evidence. He wrote one shaky word on a notepad. Camera. Elena understood. Using his own account, they ordered hidden wireless cameras and had them held at the post office. While Carla and her lover went on a weekend trip, Elena and Elliot installed them all over the house, in the kitchen, the bedroom, the office, the main hallway. Every camera fed to cloud storage. When Carla came home, she had no idea her every move, every cruel comment, every plan was about to be recorded. And what those cameras captured over the next month was horrifying. Conversations about suffocating him with a pillow and staging it as an accident. Searches on her laptop about how long a disabled person could survive without food. Discussions about life insurance payouts, offshore accounts, and when it would finally be over. They even set a date, December 27th, the day after Christmas. The day Elena would be given the day off. The day Carla planned to be alone with him and make sure he never woke up. What Carla didn't know was that while she planned her husband's death, he was preparing her downfall. On December 23rd, just days before the planned killing, Elliot and Elena took the footage to a lawyer. He watched Carla casually describe cutting the brake line. He watched her talk about suffocating Elliot. He listened to her discuss how they'd blame the caregiver if something went wrong. His reaction was simple. This is the most documented attempted murder case I've ever seen. Police were contacted. Warrants were signed. Officers were put in place. That evening, Elliot's parents rushed to the house, confused and terrified after hearing their son speak more clearly on the phone than he had since the accident. Elena sat them down in the living room. "Mr. Elliot wants to tell you himself," she said. Then they heard it. Footsteps. The man doctor said would never walk again. Walked into the room in a suit and tie. "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad," he said. His parents broke down in tears. Then came the truth. He showed them video after video. Carla mocking him. Carla starving him. Carla and her lover discussing his murder. Carla admitting to sabotaging his car. Their perfect daughter-in-law was exposed in seconds. As they sat in shock, headlights appeared in the driveway. Carla and her lover walked in, laughing, carrying shopping bags, and froze. Because sitting in front of them were Elliot's parents. Her own voice filled the room, talking about suffocating him, about how she'd enjoy ending his life, about how the accident should have killed him. She dropped to her knees, tried to beg, then snapped and screamed, "You were supposed to die." At that exact moment, detectives entered the home. Carla and her partner were arrested on the spot, charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, and abuse. The woman the world thought was a devoted wife left the house in handcuffs. The investigation that followed was overwhelming. Police pulled 847 hours of footage, dozens of explicit murder planning conversations, proof of financial theft and insurance fraud, search histories about killing methods and how to avoid autopsies. The original accident was reclassified from mechanical failure to deliberate sabotage. Forensic tests matched the cut brake line to tools found in Carla's vehicle. Parking garage footage showed her under his car that morning. Phone records showed constant contact with her lover. In court, the jury watched the videos. They heard her words. They saw how Elliot had been treated. It didn't take them long, guilty, on every count. Carla and her co-conspirator were each sentenced to decades in prison, effectively a life sentence. Elliot didn't get a fairy tale ending. He still lives with permanent injuries. He still has to manage pain, mobility limits, and trauma. But he got something else back. Control. He regained custody of his daughters. He built a new home without the shadows of what happened. He slowly rebuilt his life with therapy, support, and time. When asked if he forgives Carla, his answer is honest and complicated. "I forgive for my peace, not for her comfort. I let go of the hate so it doesn't poison me. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or letting her near us again. She's where she belongs. I'm where I belong. That's enough." Elliot Warren's story is about more than one evil plan. It's about how evil can hide behind a smile, a social media post, a perfect couple image. It's about how vulnerable disabled people, the elderly, and dependent partners can be behind closed doors. And it's about how one man, trapped in his own body, refused to let his story end the way someone else had written it. He was supposed to die twice. Instead, he lived twice. First as a successful businessman, then as a survivor who turned the tables on his abusers. If this story shook you, here's what you can do. Subscribe if you want more deep, detailed true crime stories where justice actually fights back. Like this video to help more people see it, especially those who might be in controlling or abusive situations right now. Comment below, what moment shocked you the most? What would you have done in Elliot's position? And if you're going through something that feels impossible, you are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not alone. Document what you can. Tell someone safe. Reach out for help. Because as Elliot's story proves, when truth has evidence and courage behind it, it doesn't just survive. It wins.